Hey, second grade art friends, it's Mrs. Herbay. This week, what's going to happen with our bird project is we are going to make the snowy background for our bird. And what I'm going to show you guys is pretty cool. And mostly, we're going to look at the power of crayons and how they can really be used as a cool art medium to create our background. We're also going to be using some cut paper, and we're going to be using light green and regular green quick sticks, which I sent home with you, and a little bit of white paint. But first, what I want you to do is grab a box of crayons, and what we're going to do is we're going to pick out the white crayon, and we're going to pick out, if you happen to have a gray crayon, you can use that one. And we're going to pick out the black crayon. And then we're also going to pick out if you have some yellow. Okay? So grab those. And we could also use, if you wanted to, that one says cerulean. Here, we would use our blue crayon. Okay, so if you want to get those crayons out of your box, and then we'll get started. All right, now the first thing I want to teach you guys today is how to create a background where we are able to see into the distance. And so we're kind of creating a miniature landscape. And last year, when we made our foldable landscapes, what we talked about was the objects in the foreground are the biggest, and as we go back, the objects get smaller. And another thing that happens in landscapes is as you go back, the objects also get a little bit blurrier. And there's a fancy word called atmospheric perspective. And what that means is that as things go back in a landscape, they tend to get a little bit blurrier. The colors aren't quite as sharp. So that's what we're going to practice today. I'm going to kind of show you how to create this idea of atmospheric perspective. So what we're going to do is we are going to take our white crayon, and we are going to first figure out our horizon line. And if you remember from before, the horizon line is where the land meets the sky. And we probably want our horizon line to be somewhere somewhere not exactly in the middle, so somewhere a little bit higher than the middle of our piece of paper. And what I want you to do is you're just going to lightly just draw a white line across. And it's not going to be super, super dark, but you're going to draw it across. And I'm not sure if you can see on my paper, so I'm going to make it a little bit darker so that you guys can see that. Okay? And then the next thing that you're going to do is we're going to add some trees. And so what we're going to do is we're going to add some vertical lines. And we're going to take our black crayon, but when I color with my black crayon, I'm going to be coloring super, super light. So I'm coloring with a light value. And what I'm doing is I'm just going to add some vertical lines. So some might be thin and might come down below the horizon line. They can be a little bit close together. So you're sort of planning a forest because birds like to hang out in trees. And so to create interest, we're lightly coloring, and see how I'm staggering where the lines end. And we're just coloring very lightly. This line is a little bit thicker than those ones. Might leave a little more space here. Put one there. you are the designer and the creator of your space, so you can decide how many vertical lines you want to put. That's about how many that I'm going to put. I actually might even put one more really faint one here and another really faint one right where it's actually ending at the horizon line. And then what we're going to do is to blur those out a little bit. We're going to take our white crayon and just kind of lightly color over the black. And again, I'm not pressing very hard. So this is another cool technique that you guys can see how you can use crayons, and you can layer your colors. And by adding the white to the trees, to the black, it's kind of making the trees kind of fade a little bit, but we still can see the black poking through. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we're going to take our crayon and we're lightly going to color the blue here. And I'm going to be careful not to color over another thing that you can do if you want to, although a lot of times we don't like to break our crayons, but you could peel off the paper of your crayon. I'm just going to break off this little piece, and then in this area down here, if I slide the crayon on a flat surface, that's another way to fill in this area. I'm going to make sure that comes down there. So just take a few minutes, kind of play around with, if you use the edge of your crayon, it kind of gives you can kind of maybe make some texture for, you could also kind of where the tree is going into the ground, if you make it, you can create some little, you can make the value a little bit darker. All right, so just go ahead and take your time and add your vertical lines, and then go ahead and add your sort of your white over top of your black to create your sort of forest. And again, you can, if you want to, you can use the side of a crayon, but if you don't want to do that, you can also just, if I just lightly go back and forth, I'm able to kind of fill this in. And sometimes snow has a little bit of, you can also layer it with your blue crayon, and sometimes you can also layer it with a little bit with your gray crayon too. So you can use your gray crayon. Okay, Go ahead, do that, and then I'll explain the next several steps. All right, so the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to think about if you would like to have a moon glowing also in the background of your picture. If you do, you're going to take your yellow crayon and you're just going to draw a circle. And my box of crayon has two different yellows. So I'm just kind of coloring around, and then to kind of soften it and give it more of a glow, if I color over the yellow with the white, it gives it kind of a more glowy feel on the blue paper there. Okay, so there's my glowing moon. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this aside for a second, and I'm going to grab my brown piece of paper. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to think about the foreground. And in the foreground, we are going to create a series of branches that either are coming off of a tree or off of a bush for our bird to be sitting on. And it's going to be an evergreen tree because we're going to use our green quick sticks to add pine needles. But the first thing we need to do is we need to think about these branches. And so what we're going to do is on our piece of paper here, we're going to put it horizontally the long way. And what you can kind of do is, what I would do is, we could just cut this into strips, but it would look really, really kind of boring. And so to jazz it up a little bit and to make it look a little more professional, what we're going to do is, if you draw kind of like a wavy line, all right, and then if you start, the next wavy line is going to maybe be further away, and then it'll get close, and then it'll kind of be like this. So it's kind of, you're going to kind of have like this waviness to it. Maybe I'm going to make another one down here. That's thinner. Maybe up here, I'll make one that's thicker. And then maybe up here, I'll make one that's a little thinner. All right. Then what we're going to do is we're going to take our scissors and we're going to cut these lines out. So I'm just carefully cutting along my pencil lines. Okay. And I'm just going ahead and cutting these out. And last but not least, I have this top one here. Okay, so go ahead, cut out all of your, cut along all of your lines, and then you're going to have sort of a nice variety of different strips that will serve as our branches, okay? And then we'll go on to the next step. All right, guys, now the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to take some of our strips that we cut, and we're going to kind of figure out where do we want the branches coming from? And what looks kind of nice is that when we have these vertical lines in the back for the trees, and so now we probably want to create some sort of diagonal lines for the branches of this tree that is right here in the foreground. So kind of look through your branches, and you can kind of find one that you want to be sort of the main branch that's coming across. And it is okay if the branches stick off the edge of the paper, because I'm gonna show you guys a trick after we glue these down. Then we'll cut off the edges. Okay, so we don't have to really be concerned about it coming off the edge. So I think I want sort of a branch coming down like this. And so to start off with, so then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my glue stick. So I'm going to turn my branch to the back. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some glue along the edges there. And then I'm going to put my branch, and then I'm going to smooth it. And then obviously there are branches that come off other branches. So then I'm going to kind of figure out where do I want some other branches to go. So then I'm going to take a thinner branch, and I'm going to put some glue stick on that. And then I'm going to just slide it because I didn't really smooth that down very much yet. So I'm just going to kind of slide it underneath this branch. And then I've got that there. And if I wanted to use more of it, I could just kind of cut off that end there. And maybe I want to slide it. Oops, I can't really. So what I can do is I can lift this up. I might want to slide some of it underneath that one. So now I've got some nice branches going. And then maybe I want to make some other branches. So maybe now there's one kind of coming from another way that's maybe like this. Except for I think I want to use it so that I don't see my pencil lines. So again, I'm going to turn it upside down. Rub it with my glue stick and smooth it down. And then I have some thinner branches. Maybe I want this one kind of coming down here. So I'm going to put my glue, and then I'm going to try to slide it underneath here. I can't really slide it, but since I just glued this one, I'll slide it underneath like that. And I still have a good amount on that one. So maybe there's a branch. Try to slide it under there a little bit. So I've got another branch, and I'm just gonna kind of trim the end there. And if I want to, the nice thing is that you can overlap your branches. So like now this one could go over top of this one, which gives us a feeling of depth. So again, I'm going to put some glue on the back. Maybe this branch is coming kind of up like this. And gonna play around with we have another branch like that. So you can just kind of have fun with this. I'm just gonna turn this over. And then when you think that you have enough branches, then you can actually maybe I'll put that one going like that. And then just put a little more glue over here. All right. So once you have all the branches that you think that you like, and you are ready, I'm just gonna see. I think I want to add one more like right there, just for fun. But you have, the nice thing is you have plenty of, I'm just going to pull that, that's not going to pull up a little bit. That's okay, I'm just going to put this over top of this one. Okay, and there we have it. So there's all my branches. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn my paper over, okay? And on the back, I can see all of the extra branches sticking out. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to carefully snip all of those off. And then if you notice, now the edge is perfectly smooth. All right. And then, oops, I accidentally, let me put a little more glue there. So then I'm just going to carefully snip, 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 and then there's one more down here, snip. And now my picture is ready to go. Now the next step is that we're going to grab our quick sticks, and I'm going to show you kind of a fun way to make these branches look like they have pine needles on them. So go ahead, grab your quick sticks, and then we'll add our pine needles. All right, guys, now we're going to add the pine needles to our branches, and you're going to grab your light green quick stick and your dark green. Mrs. Herbay is at home, so I have something like a quick stick. It's called a twistable. It's dark green. And then I have a light green quick stick as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our quick sticks and we're going to just turn them up a little bit. And we're going to use the side of the quick stick to make some lines like that. And then I'm going to add some light green on top of the dark green. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to do that. So it's going to start on the side where the branches are. So it's just kind of doop, doop, doop. I'm going to do doop. And what this is doing is this is adding more details to my foreground, which is where, and so sometimes what I like to do is do the, oops, I like to do the dark green first, and then you can add the light green on top, and it usually kind of sort of is like a little highlight. Or here I just did the light green first, but then it wasn't very dark, so it's kind of like, and you can make them coming off of the bottom of the branch or the top of the branch. You can have some close together. You can have some spread apart. You can make some longer, like in that case, or you can make some shorter. So just kind of have some fun with it. Okay, and then once you finish that, then I'll tell you the next step. I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit more to mine. All right, guys, we're on the last step of our background, and what we're going to do is we are going to add some snowy details. And I gave you a little cup of paint, and if it is a little bit dry, that's okay. You can add a little bit of water to it, maybe just like a drop or two, and then you can stir it around, and that will get it going again. And what you're going to do is you can take a Q-tip or any other small little thing that you have. And one of the things that you can do with the Q-tip is you can take the white paint and you can add some sort of snow that's kind of sitting on some of the branches. So you can kind of put some, you can take your Q-tip, just dip it in a little bit and kind of maybe have some snow that's kind of laying on the branches in some spots. So that's one of the things you can do. And then another thing that you can do is on the crayon where you had the white, you can kind of add some more white to the snowy background, which is kind of cool. I'm just taking just a tiny little bit, and then I'm just kind of rubbing and it's making it look even a little snowier. You don't have to do this step if you don't want to, but if you would like to, it's kind of fun. So I'm just carefully adding some snow to the background part. And then I think I'm gonna also add a little more snow on some of the branches. And then the last fun thing that you can do is, if your parents will let you, if you have like a paintbrush, or if you have like an old toothbrush that you don't use anymore, sometimes you kind of have some old spare ones, maybe that your mom might use for cleaning or something like that. You could ask your parents if you could possibly borrow that. And then what I'm going to show you is if you take, this is kind of cool, if you take the brush or the toothbrush and you're just going to lightly get some paint on the bottom part of the bristles. So I'm almost like just tapping it in here. So you can see that there's some paint just kind of on the end of the bristles. So I'm just kind of taking it and I'm going tap, tap, tap. And then you can see I have paint on the end of the bristles. And then what you're going to do is you're going to flick. And if you notice, it's splatting tiny bits of paint onto the picture, and it's making it look like it's snowing. You might want to ask your parents where it might be okay to do this, because it kind of sends the paint sailing a little bit. But it's kind of fun because it makes it really look like it's snowing. Okay? And then when you're all done, you're just going to let this dry. And then next week we're going to finish up by taking our bird and putting it onto our beautiful snowy background. One thing I want you to notice is that you're going to see the foreground. The branches are really nice and big. And then we have our middle ground kind of behind us, but then in the background you'll see we have sort of like those faint trees, which looks kind of cool, and it gives us the idea that we could walk back into this landscape. So I hope you had fun with this, and I'll look forward to touching base with you guys this week.